This is the JWN podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Meanstead. Welcome to a solo show. If you're new to the podcast, I basically release 2 shows a week, or at least that's what I've been doing. I've settled in on this. And the first episode usually drops on a Monday, and it's an interview with somebody in the creative community. And then I'll follow up later in the week with a solo show where it's just me talking to you about what's on my mind, news, things of that nature. And I hope you're doing well. I mean, man, this year is rapidly closing. For a year that felt like it was never going to end, the tail end of it has been super fast. And maybe that's because we've kind of figured out ways to cope with life in a pandemic and have events or gatherings or just things to do to kind of be like normal-esque, if you know what I mean. I had a great weekend. Again, this has been like 3 weekends in a row where I felt like I just had stuff to do. Felt like somewhat normal. There was this awesome arts show, and it was an outdoor event at a brewery, and it was just like the world, if there's a God, it really wanted this event to happen perfectly because the weather it was like a California day. It was like mid-70s, sunny, beautiful out. Just people came out. Everyone was really cool. Kept it safe, socially distant, but there were so many artists there. People I knew, people I've never met before. I felt like I was just, I felt like I was conducting interviews with random strangers and had to realize, hey, you're not recording a podcast now. Leave these folks alone. But I was just so interested in what everyone had to offer. There was just a diverse collection of artists there. And it wasn't like a holiday market, a traditional holiday market like you might run across this time of year. It was a full-on art show. I mean, there was people with just giant paintings and sculptures and photographers, musicians. It was fantastic. It was something I know I have been missing, and it just filled such a wonderful need. So the people at Tradesman Brewery, thank you for hosting the event. The people who organized it, a buddy of mine, Chad Dyer, who I actually just got done interviewing. He'll be our guest on Monday. Fascinating discussion. Somebody I've known for years, but how many times do you know people from around your community or you're in your friend group that you're kind of just acquaintances with, you're friendly with, but you really don't know them? And that's something that this podcast has really given me, is the ability to sit down with people like Chad and really get to know him, really get to find out his life story and what drives him and why did he put together this arts festival. And that'll all come on Monday's episode. So please look for subscribe and check that out on Monday. But for now, I did want to tell you that I did drop some fake news on you, and 'tis the season, right? Or 'tis the last 4 years for fake news. But last week on my solo show, I told you that the music farm has been sold or closed down. I'm sorry. And that is not true. I was corrected. Kaylin Oyer, who writes for the Post and Courier, basically disclosed that no, the music farm has not closed yet, but they are trying to sell it. And they're looking for buyers right now, but they want to hand it off to somebody who will keep it a music venue, much like the one that exists now. So there's hope that we won't lose the music farm. We'll lose the people who've been running it eventually, I imagine, but hopefully we will still have that venue, that iconic place where I saw Paul Westerberg play many, many years ago. When I first moved here, I was like, yes, get to see Paul Westerberg, who it's just an icon to me. Anyway, I've seen so many good shows there, and I'm glad that it still has a chance. It's not gone. It's like a second chance of life. And I apologize for spreading misinformation. I also said that there was an art show going on at the Purple Buffalo this past weekend, and it's actually this weekend. So guess what? If you are like super like you have procrastinated to the point where now everything's out of stock that you want to buy for people, and shipping times are no longer going to get things to people by Christmas, you have, if you live in the Charleston area, at least you have a place to go to get some local art. So that's at the Purple Buffalo. You can check out their Instagram. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But yeah, you still have that option. And if you don't live in the Charleston area, this is like, you're going to have to go out. You're going to have to go to stores and brave the last minute shopping situation in a pandemic. What I would suggest maybe is to find places that allow you to do curbside pickup if you're going to a big box store, or what might work out, which I would prefer if you were buying a gift from me, is maybe find some local artists in the area and see if they have anything for sale that you can go pick up from them, or you can arrange some sort of meetup with them. And if there is a last minute art show in your town, maybe go see it. Galleries are probably still open, that kind of stuff. So I feel like it's more important now to support artists and venues too. Hey, there's another one. I shared it on my Instagram this week. If you have in your local area, if there's a music venue that is selling merchandise like t-shirts or hats or things like that, glasses, whatever it is, go buy some of that stuff for your music loving family member or friend, because guess what? They're gonna love that, and you're gonna help keep the doors open at these music venues. Like I just talked about the Music Farm, and we want to keep those going because we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It feels like maybe by the summertime we could start to get some sort of semblance of the old school version of normal, which was like, concerts and things of that nature. I hope so. Hey, did you happen to watch the new Christopher Nolan movie yet? It came out. You can buy it now on streaming services. And wow, that one was, at first I didn't know if I was liking it or not, because I felt like it could have been like a mini series, because it was such a complex story as far as the concept of the way they're using time travel. I don't want to spoil it for you. So if you're planning to watch it, I'm not going to spoil it for you. But if you do watch it, you're probably going to want to watch it more than once, because there's so much dialogue and information thrown at you quickly. There's not a wasted moment of film on that. There's nothing to. It's either lots of action or lots of dialogue, and you need to see what's going on with the action, because the action's not just like, oh, they're blowing things up, how cool is that? It's like, no, there's stuff going on that you have to pay attention to as you piece together, what is going on in this story and how it's being told. But it's really, I do appreciate Christopher Nolan's kind of heady stuff like Interstellar, Memento, things like that. They're just so it's original, it's original, and I enjoyed it. So if you're planning on watching it, be prepared for 2.5 hours of intense paying attention. But I did want to bring it up only because I so wanted to see it in the theaters when it came out, but there was no way in hell I was going to support the stupidity of expecting people to go indoors to a movie theater to watch a movie during a pandemic. It's like, dude, that's a stupid, selfish thing to do. And I would imagine, I don't know the logistics of how that worked out, but I know that they couldn't have made their money. The fraction of people that actually did go to the theaters and put themselves at risk, I mean, it's just weird. Why would you do that to people? But I was willing to shell out the money to buy it as soon as it hit streaming services, because I wanted to send the message, like, to anyone who needs to put out their work during this time, like, hey, you can still make money. You can still make a successful movie and bypass the traditional ways of showing it to us through movie theaters. I still want movie theaters to exist, don't get me wrong, but now's not the time to be going to them. Now's the time to be sitting at home and watching it at home, which is why, like, I congratulate, say, HBO for getting the rights to show Wonder Woman on HBO Max on Christmas Day. Just like, to me, that's a responsible thing to do, and it's a way you're going to ensure people stay in and watch a movie instead of go out and put themselves at risk. So, yeah, I was happy to spend the money on that movie. So, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. First, I wanted to talk about something that I've been thinking about from my discussions I've had with people, and where I feel like my artistic vision as a creative person, where it's going. And, I've had so much fun talking to various creative people, and it's been so inspiring. It's really given me a chance to put myself in a position to ride the wave of creativity. In other words, I feel like there's a frequency that people who create stuff are kind of communicating through or on. This frequency, and it maybe that's how the muse works, the ever so elusive muse that gives inspiration to people, and for songwriters, it might be the spark that gives them an idea for a song, or for a painter, it gives them the idea for a painting or an expression, and so on. And I started to, like, jot down notes of what I want to kind of accomplish. I know I spoke on the last solo show about trying to have some sort of meaning and passion and creating a personal project that reflects those things, and I'm starting to narrow it down. And I'm so excited because every time I talk to somebody, and I'm probably a little excited right now because I just had a fun conversation with Chad, as I told you earlier. But I've been taking notes, and this is what I've written down. I wrote down bold colors, and then I wrote down glam, but not shallow. And then I wrote celebrating life with purpose. And finally, grunge / goth / emo ethics, but with a positive outlook. So that last one is a little kind of out there in the weeds. I get it, but really, what I'm trying to get to is I want bright, bold colors. I want super glamorous, but not empty glamorous. In other words, not making something look beautiful just for the sake of making it look beautiful, which there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but doing it as a celebration of life, doing it with a purpose, doing it to say, like, hey, this is fun and exciting, and like, life is beautiful. You know what I'm saying? I know that sounds cheesy, but that's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm gathering from talking to people. Like, people are ready to celebrate life, whether it's through kind of more positive messaging or happiness in their artwork, and not so much doom and gloom. I grew up at a time where I came of age, where, when I was a certain age, young teenager, it was like just as the hair metal glam bands of the 80s and the big arena rock was kind of just at its peak. And then by the time I hit high school, actually that was probably just as it was on its downfall. And then somewhere around high school is when grunge and that kind of that new wave of punk rock really kind of took off in a mainstream way. And that it really captured, like, it was like the antithesis of the 80s glam, and the 90s was a lot more dark and gritty and moody and you had a different in different, you had this industrial music going on. You had a strong emo scene. You had the post-punk hardcore scene. There was all of this stuff that was angsty and gritty and just like you got this feeling that people were just upset with what they were given. Like, and now I'm feeling like, hey, I haven't lost any of that, any of those two influences. But I think right now, after what we've all gone through, we've experienced all of those emotions, and we've really, we've got a choice to make. And the choice is we can either keep swimming in that pain and hurt, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. Or we can choose to turn that into something beautiful and find the brightness, the happiness, but do it in a way where it's not shallow, not empty, not just fluffy for no reason. It's glam with a purpose. Almost like 70s glam kind of had a purpose. Like the original glam stuff felt like it was coming out of the gutters of punk rock, and then new wave in the 80s had sort of along those, but not repeating that, building upon it. I feel like that's kind of, I'm sorry if I'm just talking complete nonsense, but that's where I'm at. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I really do feel like we're going to all have this big coming out party. And I don't mean that in a sexual identity way. I mean it in a emotional way, and I think we're ready. I think I'm ready. I don't know if you're on the same page as me. I don't know if you're picking up on that from other artists, but I feel like that's the wave that's about to crash on us, and I'd like to ride it. I'd like to ride it. This past weekend, or this past Friday, I should say, an artist who I was a huge fan of. Like I loved his songwriting. Just he really struck a chord with me. Ryan Adams released a new record. And if you're not familiar with who Ryan Adams is, buckle up. Ryan Adams was not for everybody. Is definitely not for everybody now. But he's definitely a very emotional singer-songwriter guy. Very, very much. He's in touch with like the painful part of his existence and his emotions. And it's just a talented songwriter. He's really gifted. He's an excellent musician. He surrounded himself with some of the best musicians in the world. And he put out some really awesome records. But he always had a reputation. He always had a reputation amongst other artists, people he worked with, other bands he played with, people just around him in general, that he was difficult. And I say difficult, that's just being kind. I mean, he's just known as an asshole. It's really what it comes down to. Very few people come around and say, no, he's a real great guy. You just don't hear a lot of those stories, or you didn't. And then something happened a couple of years ago. He was about to embark on a tremendous year for himself. He was gonna really put out 3 albums in one year, which, I mean, not too many artists do that these days. Guided by Voices. There's a few other ones. The OCs. Who's that other band that anyway, I can go on. There's a few bands. They usually tend to be more on the experimental sides of things. And he was going to put out 3 brand new albums. And right before he dropped an album called Big Colors, which is funny that I just talked about the whole the bold colors thing. Anyway, sorry, tangent. But he was going to put out an album called Big Colors, and right after he dropped the first single, a bunch of women in his life came forward and some information came out about him that couldn't be denied, and it became apparent that there was a group of people around him that were protecting him and kind of suppressing this information for a while. And yeah, and the man has problems. The man suffers from alcoholism, but that's not an excuse. There's some sort of weird. I just don't know him well enough. I don't know if you judge by the accusations. He's a bit of a narcissist, and he's a hurtful person. He has a lot of pain in his life, and he definitely takes it out on people near him. And but these women were basically claiming is that he's quite verbally and emotionally abusive, and there were some texts that leaked between him and an underage girl, and that's kind of where it's like, okay, people's interactions with each other are tricky, but this is black and white, dude. You're a creep. You're a fucking creep. It's disgusting. And what do you do? What do you do in that situation? Because as a fan of his music and the bands he'd played in beforehand and the musicians that he had surrounded himself with, like as a fan of all of that and the songs that he created, it's so hard to find out like, hey, this guy is just a piece of shit. And how do you handle that as a fan? As a fan, it's really difficult because you want, America loves a redemption story. So you want this person to heal. You want this person to overcome that. But the way this new record he just put out, doesn't feel so much like he's overcome anything. And let me explain why. So he had all of this material now so he got, I hate saying it this way, but because it sounds like it's diminishing it, but he got Me Too'd, and then all of the records got shelved that he was going to put out, right? And he kind of went offline. He kind of went into hiding. There was a couple of sightings over the last couple of years of him out and about, but for the most part, he was radio silent. No new music after that. And the hope of someone who's a fan of his, right, is that he's getting help, that he's doing a lot of healing, he's doing a lot of soul searching, and maybe he's going to reach out to these people that he harmed personally and maybe atone for his sins. You know what I'm saying? Like talk to them about what it meant to them, like what he did, and really learn from it and try to become a better person. And that's what we would hope. That for the victims, we would hope that for him. As fans, we hope that at some point he could use his talents and entertain us again and not feel gross about it, right? That's what you hope. So what he released was it was one of the records that was going to be released that got canned, and he kind of changed the order of songs and added some songs from other records. But for the most part, these are songs that were written and performed for the most part before he got outed. So this is like music coming from the mind of a deeply damaged, in a bad way, person. So listening to the songs with that knowledge, it doesn't sit well. And I'm telling you, I was a fan. I really was. Like I flew up to New York to see him at Carnegie Hall. Like that's how much of a fan. And I can't tell you, I seek out his music ever since this happened. Every once in a while, it would show up on a playlist and I'd find myself like enjoying the song. And then all of a sudden you realize what you're listening to. And then like this darkness comes over you and you're like, this fucking guy. What the fuck did you do, man? And yeah, all those things I said before. You hope that you hope you get him back. You know what I'm saying? As a fan, selfishly, you just want him to not be a piece of shit. You don't want to have to listen to the damn music with a freaking guilty conscience. But I'm not there yet. I'm sure there's a lot of people who aren't there. There are a lot of people, I'm sure, that don't even know that he's had these problems with women in his life. I imagine there's a lot of people who don't know, and worse, I imagine there's a lot of people who don't care. So there's that. But I know, and I care. And listening to these new songs, I listened to it twice because I was just like, let me listen to it once. It really, really kind of upset me the first time. So then I waited a day and listened to it again. And yeah, it didn't get better. Didn't get better. I just felt like, yeah, I honestly wanted to hear all of the music that got shelved from a curiosity standpoint and from being a fan. But not like this. It just feels. I feel like he could have maybe just waited a while on that material. And if he's going to come back, and if he truly has healed or is in the process of healing, maybe capture that and put that out there. I feel like that would sit a little bit better. But I don't know because he didn't do it, so I just don't know. I can't promise that that's how it would go. Who knows? This is kind of uncharted territory, no? But yeah, but there's artists that we all love that have shady past. It's hard to sit there and not like love the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson, knowing what he became, or at least what he was accused of, and it seems like it's pretty much true. It's hard to tell. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say it's hard to tell. It's hard to prove, but it looks like all the worst things we thought that are possible with Michael Jackson are true. But it's hard because you still love the music, right? And there's some artists that have questionable behaviors from their times, like Jimmy Page, kind of having like a 14-year-old girl that he took on tour with him, and yeah, it's a little disturbing. So yeah, we all kind of make these we all have our line, right? And I feel like Ryan Adams crossed that line, and it's real hard to get back. So what do you do in that case? Like, how do you deal as a fan? What do you do? Luckily, one of the accusers, in my opinion, kind of filled the void that he left. And I hate to say it because it's kind of weird, but like Phoebe Bridgers was one of the accusers of Ryan Adams being a piece of shit in every sense of the term. And her music definitely has filled that void for me, which if you've been listening for these solo shows for the last few weeks, I'm a bit of a fan. Made it a little obvious. So, I mean, that's one way I've found to deal with it is unfortunately to it sounds weird, but to replace it with somebody better. Is that fair? I don't know, but that's how I've dealt with it. So I've found somebody to fill that emotional music singer songwriter, like just really going in deep and tearing at your heartstrings. Like she's filled that void for me. All right, folks, let's get on to the news. For our first story, we're going to talk about one of my favorite things that have happened as a response to 2020, and that was Bandcamp Fridays. If you don't know what Bandcamp is, it's a music service where you can buy music from musicians and, support them that way. You can buy all sorts of stuff from them. But it's kind of like it's not quite the same as a Spotify or Apple Music or one of those types of things. It's similar. You can stream a lot of the content for free, commercial free, but you can just buy like an album from one of your favorite artists. And they've been doing this thing where on the first Friday of every month, they've been giving 100% of the proceeds after they take out the credit card processing fees and whatnot. But 100% of the proceeds go directly to the artist, which is amazing considering that Spotify pays like they're fighting to get a penny per stream. They're not even getting it. They're getting a fraction of a penny per stream. It's an unlivable situation for musicians. But with Bandcamp, they're getting all the money. It's most of the money. And so they have decided, they originally were going to keep these Bandcamp Fridays going till the end of the year. Well, they have announced that they're going to keep going. They're going to do one in January, February, March, April, and May, all the way up into May. As of now, it's planned to have more Bandcamp Fridays. And they made a statement and they said this: if you started to feel guilty about buying music on any day other than Bandcamp Friday, here's something to keep in mind. On Bandcamp Fridays, an average of 93% of your money reaches the artist/label after payment processing fees. When you make a purchase on any other day of the month, as 2.5 million people have since March, buying an additional $145 million worth of music and merch through the site, an average of 82% reaches the artists and labels. So every day is a good day to directly support artists on Bandcamp. So yeah, on Fridays, 93% goes, and any other day of the week, on Bandcamp Fridays. Every other day of the week, though, they're still getting 82%, which is ridiculously good. That's an amazing percentage. So yeah, freaking kudos to Bandcamp. Since they started this whole thing, over the course of these days, these Bandcamp Fridays that they have done, they've paid artists and labels $40 million. That's amazing. That's amazing. They're so making an embarrassment out of every other music service, because guess what? They're showing that you can do this and survive, make money as the company doing it. But more importantly, the people making the music can get paid properly and honestly. And yeah, it's the right thing to do. So go find your favorite artist on Bandcamp and buy their music that way. All right, moving along. I'm actually going to report a CNN article. Fake news. All right, whatever. Our next story is about a former president of the United States of America. Somebody who, if you told me during his term I'd be looking at him fondly at any point in my life, I'd be like, you're crazy. But here we go. The title of this article from CNN is George W. Bush sends holiday card with pointed message as Trump denies election loss. So basically, George Bush, if you don't know this, George W. Bush, after he ended his presidential term, became a painter. Like, that's what he did with his time afterwards. He decided he wanted to paint people and things and stuff. And yeah, it's actually fascinating. It's honestly so the opposite of what you would expect from this guy who we all thought was like the devil incarnate. Decided to start painting with his retirement. It's fantastic. So former President George W. Bush sent out his holiday cards with a pointed message about a hopeful new year. The card, which was obtained by CNN, includes an image of Bush's painting of the Statue of Liberty, and it's titled Beacon of Hope 2020. It's part of his new art collection celebrating immigrants. May the light of the holiday season shine bright in your heart now and throughout the new year, the card's message reads. The painting and its title come from a former president who has in the past leveled veiled criticism against Trump's immigration policies and was one of the first Republican figures to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden on his election win. Bush's choice to make the Statue of Liberty central to his card is symbolic of his past critiques of Trump. The statue was often one of the first sights that new immigrants to America would see as they enter the New York harbor, and it contains a poem by Emma Lazarus that is famous for its phrase, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." The poem itself was targeted by a Trump administration official in 2019 who suggested it should be revised to include only immigrants who can stand on their own 2 feet. What a dick. The holiday card from the only living former Republican president comes as Trump and his GOP allies continued to deny his election loss, even after the Electoral College on Monday affirmed Biden's win. All right, so who would have thought that the most reasonable Republican, prominent Republican, was George W. Bush? Go figure. I know a lot of people get angry whenever there's any articles like this. They'll say, don't forget, he did this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 blah. Yes, no, we get it. But as I stated earlier when I was talking about redemption, what people are doing with the information they have now as opposed to what they did before means something. It really does. It means something. There are people out there who probably have been following along and have been hardcore behind Trump or just the Republican Party, right? But they see the former president with this message of hope and this message of inclusion and valuing the immigrants that come to this country. And those are the people that have made it great, right? And they're getting now a mixed message because they're getting this bad message from one side, and this other guy who they used to follow is saying, no, this is the correct message. So I don't know. There's something. I'm not gonna poo-poo the guy. Congratulations, George W. Bush. And I love whenever I see his artwork. I'm like, this is so cool that he's doing that. I'm not gonna lie. I like it. All right, folks, that's all I have time for today. I got to run out of here. I got to go shoot a concert. A concert for Bill Wilson, who was on the podcast a couple weeks ago. He's performing his holiday show, and I get to shoot it. Like, okay. See, I have no soul. That was my song, my singing. Anyway, I hope you have a great weekend, and be safe. Peace.